Hello, Idan. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so delighted to have this opportunity to chat to you. I met you in relation to your podcast, Feel Good with Me, and from the moment of having a conversation with you, I was so warmed by your energy and by your approach. So I'm delighted to be able to share your story with the listeners. Um, there's so much to touch on and sort of where to begin. I find you remarkable. There's such a strong impulse to serve. So what I know of your story is that you had a vegan coffee shop at one point. You are a published Penguin author. You've written a book about CBD. You are online now. You supply CBD online. You run a B&B in Portugal. You are a podcast host. I hear all of this, and I know that you have struggled and had the challenge with ME as well. So it blows my mind. And I think why I find it remarkable is that I value progress in life. So where does that drive come from, that impulse to serve?
Thank you so much for introducing me in such a beautiful way. And I would just say I'm a really simple person. Started school with the left foot. I'm dyslexic. I've got ADHD. I look very calm, but ADHD is not always about running around. Although as a kid I did run around and scream a lot and struggle to focus. I'm not sure exactly that I guess I just like people, and I'm a people person, and I want to see everyone's doing well and feeling good. My granddad had a community in the East End of London as a Jewish rabbi, although I'm a atheist as you get. So my family sometimes would say, oh, it's the community spirit from your granddad, and maybe, but I think it just comes to I had a beautiful childhood, and I was always supported and loved, and so I just want to share a little bit of that, and with me and how I progress in life. So there were times when around over 2 years I spent in the house. I left the house here and there where possible, but most of the 2 years I was housebound, struggling, trying to work out what's going on with me. I was a mountain bicycle champion, so my energy was strong. I could cycle 100 miles in a day, and I did.
Wow.
I
So
ran over.
tell me that transition. So you were this, kind of leading athlete, right? Very, very athletic. So what actually happened? Tell us the story of how your ME unfolded.
So it's difficult for me to pinpoint 100%. My mom has it to a degree, and some of my cousins have Lyme disease, lupus. So it seems to be running in the family to a certain degree. But basically, I had a hernia operation that didn't go so well. It took me a long time to recover from that. And then I wanted to donate blood, and I'm all for blood donation. My mother had very difficult births with the three of us, and needed blood after each one of them. So I do think it's very important to give blood. And I remember after giving blood, for me with autoimmune, I think now they don't recommend it. I didn't know back then. I've never recovered from that. It was very difficult for me to do it. And so that had an impact on me. Also, when I was in France, I had I've eaten something maybe that was wrong. I was training to become a chef in France back in the days. Had a great experience. Was very privileged to work under phenomenal head chefs. Phenomenal. I just can't. Looking back, how lucky I was, and I did appreciate it. But
one more thing to
in any
add
case,
to your list of accomplishments.
I did get a stomach bug there, which took me like 2 weeks to recover from, and I had an iron gut. I could eat anything before that and I was fine. That did not do me good for sure, and as you described in the podcast I did with you earlier, sometimes a small thing in your stomach can turn the balance. I've recently done a test for Epstein-Barr virus here in Portugal, and it's found that I had a very high antibodies. So I know half the population about has Epstein-Barr virus, but maybe I was sensitive. I wasn't. Yeah, it's there's few things that could play in there, which I think can happen. But around the age of 20 to 23, when I had the operation, given blood, probably had a strong flu at the same time or something, it just seems that I've never bounced back from these 4 events. And it happened instead of waking up in the morning. I was an early riser, 7 a.m. out of bed like a clock, even if I was partying the whole night. Suddenly I get up the bed at 8, 9, 10, 11, and you start feeling it when you wake up in the morning. And before, when I wake up, I'm like a tiger. I can go and do push-up, press-ups, run. I've got a broken shoulder from birth, but nonetheless that never stopped me. Suddenly I can't clench my hand, I can't make a fist until 2 o'clock in the afternoon, let alone doing a press-up or a push-up or going on a bicycle. And at 10, 11, and just not being able to clench hand by 1 or 2 o'clock becomes 4 or 5 in the evening, and before you know it, for a few days, you're walking like a zombie, you're not really with it. Your vision becomes blurred. You go into the bathroom in the worst 20-25 times a day with loose stools.
So was that a gradual kind of slide, or kind of did you wake up one morning and all of this was there?
A gradual. It took maybe 2-3 years. At the very beginning when it started, and it didn't go away for a few months, I'm very strong mentally, so I started running 6 miles, 10k every morning between 7 and 8 a.m.
Wow.
Before work. I did it 6 days a week.
And you were trying to shake yourself out of it? Is that?
Yeah, I did. And I was already interested in nutrition, so I was doing some nutritional practices, but I didn't have enough guidance. The internet wasn't as out there, so I would sweep and swap and wasn't consistent. I didn't know about vitamins enough.
Yeah.
So I didn't really take vitamins.
So at your worst, you said that you were housebound and bedbound. What? Just say a little bit about that.
So I was at university. I gave up that job. They even paid for my master's, and you can imagine, like, it was $9,000 they paid for me, and I have to leave a third in.
Wow.
I was working also at a charity that I was really passionate about what they do. Have to pack that as well. I just couldn't perform. They in both roles they loved me and wanted me to stay, but I just wasn't able to. So I start living in a small accommodation. Thankfully in the UK you have housing benefits and government support, and what a lifesaver. I can't be more grateful to the benefit system. When you need it, it was absolute. I just don't know what I would do without it. It would be
It allowed you to have some space, really.
it did. I can see in a different country, maybe I would have ended up on the street. Okay, I have some family who from a strong person like that didn't expect that and wouldn't let me go to the street, but it was difficult for them.
Yeah. So you dropped out of education, you dropped out of your job, you had to move house. It's like this implosion, the shutting down.
Exactly. You're going back into your snail's house. And eventually I found, I had a friend who allowed me to stay at his, and I rented from him a small space. And he practically acted as my nurse, helping me with daily things. And it's tough because you can't go shopping to top ups. You have to rely on someone. You may need to go to the bathroom, but your body is not strong enough to get out of bed. You can't even lift the bed cover, the duvet, not even a duvet, small blanket. You just don't have the strength. So yeah, I was lucky. Yeah.
And I know you have a positive mindset, Edan, right? Was there ever a reckoning psychologically that you had to do? Like, what on earth is happening to me? Or kind of were you just able to go with the flow?
I'm quite lucky that my mind is positive by nature. And of course I have a good network of support. My family and friends are very kind and understanding. So we talk about some things which I've managed to do: run a cafe, vegan bed and breakfast, and podcast, and these are very amazing and honorable things, and I'm very grateful for those opportunities. But I do wish I could have done more. I wish I could be teaching, writing books on education and well-being more easily, going to demonstration, organizing demonstration on cause which need more to be heard and things like that. So there are sometimes that I had all of these ideas as a young person what I want to do, and the gospels, yes, there are times, but also we look at what we have, and at a half full glass as well. It's good to think I can still do those in the future, but also to be grateful for. I built some community around the vegan cafe in East London at the time. That was really amazing and humbling, and I'm in touch with these people. As I say, I'm a people person, so it's great to have that community.
And you're building community through the podcast.
Exactly.
Yeah. And what was the turning point from that implosion, that shutting down, going into your shell? What happened to turn things around?
So that's a very good question. So on the days when I could read and research, I would look for practices that can help, and I came across Hyperbaric Oxygen Therapy, and I contacted Professor Shai Frati. He's an Israeli researcher. I spoke to him, and I done a 40-day oxygen therapy through that, and the hyperbaric. And first 16-17 days, it cost about £10 at the time a session, because it was through the MS Action Association in Walthamstow. It's a charity, so it's really cheap. But when you're not working, £10 a session, and you're doing it for 16 times 7, so it's £170 by that point. It's upsetting. It's like, it's really your last of monies to spend, and you have to work out. At that time I didn't buy a t-shirt or socks for a few years. It was tough. It was really tough. I'm not like one to ask for help. So it was tough. But after 16, 17 or 18 days, suddenly there's a switch. Nothing happens for this long, and then suddenly your brain is engaged. I can read, I can sleep, I can eat whatever. IBS,
How often
what
are
a
you having
difference.
sessions?
Every day, 6 days a week.
Wow.
So you have to go very regularly. And I kept it for 40 or 42 sessions. And during that time, I started researching water fasting, fruitarianism, veganism. And yeah, I then looked into water fasting, and a few months later, because with the hyperbaric oxygen therapy, as good as it is, the problem was once I stopped, even 2 sessions a week were not enough. I needed to do 3 or 4 sessions a week. And I found water fasting, and I done an extensive water fast, which of course a disclaimer, this is a life-risking thing if you don't do it under medical supervision. This
Very
is not a joke.
important to say that, yeah.
And also, yeah, so I am, and I would just with water fasting, some people recommend it to male and female equally. Maybe it's equally but safe, but I'm not sure. You really need somebody to, because a female has a cycle, and also female has a better focus to pick up berries and leaves, because there would be the gatherers. So they're actually, I think when they do that, they were more nutrient, better fed than men who would go to look for game for weeks at a time, who has actually a slightly better vision for long distance. So I think we have to be careful as well when people listen. We have a slight biological difference. Doesn't mean it's we can't do things. Just look into that as well. Don't just, oh, he did it, she did it, I can do it.
Totally agree. Totally. And it goes beyond male, female. One of my kind of mantras is there is no one size fits all.
Yeah, exactly. No one size, exactly. Because one can be diabetic, could be predisposed to something. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I done a long water fast, 28 days water only, pure water, from a glass bottle, as we spoke about. The water needs to be at high quality. Boy, was that a rough journey. I was constantly vomiting until the last day. Imagine 28 days of nausea and vomiting, and all the anesthetics, the narcotics from the drugs that put you asleep when you have an operation, which is necessary, but I don't filter that and don't remove it somehow. I've got later I learned a defect in my gene too.
Where did you do that, your water only fast?
I done it at home. my mom supervised me, so it was really the end of the road. This was a very bad time.
Yeah.
I had Dr. Alan Goldhammer from True North Center supervise me over the phone.
Okay, great. The True North is a wonderful specialist center for fasting, water only fasting. So yeah, I'm glad you had that input. And as you said, again, do not do this on your own at home, but if you can have it supervised, it can be very, very powerful in terms of resetting certain parameters.
Exactly. From there, I was a different person. But as we said, not one size fits all. It's for me, it seemed to have done the trick. Later, I learned through a genetic nutritional profile that I've got a problem in my detoxification pathways. I've got an impaired gene. I forget how you call this glucosamine. Not glucose. It's like a master antioxidant, which I have to take NAC, and some other thing. Glutathione. Sorry. So my glutathione, not just it's impaired, I think it doesn't exist. It's something crazy. So and that's why.
It's worth saying a lot of people with an ME type picture have got impairments that predispose them, whether it's with methylation or with detoxification. Yeah.
I see. So yeah, so it's so that worked for him. But maybe just taking a supplement of glutathione would have done a similar trick if I knew how to do it with the right nutrition. So that got me out of the dark. I'm not 100%. I'm far from the Idan that I used to be. Can't say how far from, but I'm able to lead a basic life. I was able to set up a vegan cafe.
Just talk to us about the food element. When did you become aware of the importance of food in your journey?
I was probably aware of how food is important from the age of 15. I remember the teacher in Israel speaking how the newcomers to Israel, the pioneers, came from Eastern Europe, a lot of them. This was even before the Holocaust, I think, when colonialism was coming to an end and people wanted to have their home. And they learned from the locals, from the local Palestinians and Jordanians and Egyptians, that in winter they used dried fruits and nuts as a source of energy to work the land. And that somehow made sense to me that, okay, I was into cycling, so maybe I was exposed already to eat high carbs before a race and things like that. But that was the first strand of cord I remembered. That makes sense. Yeah, nutrition is important. And so I was somewhat aware into nutrition, but not enough. I wasn't educated. I didn't listen to a program or a podcast or a show deep enough. And also I was cooking already and working in kitchen, so that helped as well. And then I started in my 20s, as the conditions started in the age of 22, 23, to experiment with foods and diet, and I did probably every diet under the earth. Not diet to lose weight, but eating stuff. So I would
Trying
eat
different things.
paleo, juicing, make
When
it
did
more
you do your
controversial.
chef training?
So at probably 15, I started working in a cafe bistro in Israel. Then at the age of 17, I was given an opportunity to work for a French guy, a chef in Israel, in a very exclusive bistro restaurant. But this guy, Chef Frank, looking back, the skills, the kid, he was probably my age. He was maybe 40, 42. I'm a bit younger, but it was just like a very young looking man, and it was phenomenal. And to spend one-on-one time with me. He was a new immigrant to Israel from France, so it worked. I knew Hebrew. He wanted to learn Hebrew, I guess.
So you were inspired by him, like you found a mentor, and that led you to do some training. And then later on you came to experimenting more broadly with different types of diets after your symptoms began.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. I'll just finish quickly. I then came to the UK, where my mom is from, and she was worried, the young man, what is he going to do on the street? He's going back to college. She found me a catering course in Hereford in the Midlands. I worked and studied there, and then I worked in some restaurants and hotels. Then the chef sent me to France because I was quite good, and I arrived in France. It wasn't exactly the levels I was after, and the chef itself there said, it's not free, let's find you something proper. And they did, and I worked with Michelin star chefs, two-time Michelin star chef, Chef Francois. He was an older guy. If you could not wish for an army surgeon major, he was that. If he could have had a stick on you as well, he would cane all of us. But he was in his 70s. His eye for details, his perfection with the taste of the flavors, repeating the same dishes, was crazy. I only lasted 6 months under his wing. He was very tough, so I switched to someone else afterwards. But it goes with you forever, this training. So then I experimented with, I just found nutrition very interesting. I done a quick course in Islington and Highbury College, I believe it was called. The lady there from New Zealand, I think she was she moved to New Zealand. She was really good, and if she wasn't moved, I would probably come back and I would be a nutritionist now. But anyway, she moved, and that was meant to happen, I guess. And I went into counseling and then psychology. But that sparked my interest. I had it in me to understand
Yes.
food.
Yeah.
And I saw the effect. I remember having a flu one time, and a Brazilian guy told me, eat 15, 20 oranges, your flu will go. And he did. The vitamin C did its trick.
Yeah.
And small things like that you feel. And
Okay. So what happened food-wise in relation to when your symptoms were very bad?
so at the time, unfortunately, I was experimenting with primal diet, which basically mean raw meat and raw fish and raw fats and ketogenic, and that didn't work for me. It would make me nauseous all the time, all these fats. As you can imagine, with raw meats, lots of loose stools. But you convince yourself it's the right thing to do. It's the Eskimos done it. You read a book. You suddenly there's a couple of people that you know that do it, and yes, for 2 years you blurred and you do it. Also, you brain fog, so you just go along, eat whatever. But yeah, it wasn't nice to try to digest and ingest a dead flesh animal. It's a horrible thing, and of course, it's so far removed, you don't see how the animal is getting to your plate. So that's the sickening part. You just think you're buying some meat, but it's not buying some meat. You're buying a being.
Yeah. And what caused the shift then away from that primal approach?
I think after the hyperbaric oxygen, I started reading about Dr. Herbert Shelton, was a doctor in naturopathy, I think it's called, and natural hygiene, sorry. And so learn about fruitarianism and eating vegetable. It just makes so much sense. And then after the water fast, they tell you got to ease off with a fruit. So just watermelon or mangoes for a couple of weeks to rebuild your refeeding, and then some broth made from vegetables and lentils boiled, and drink that. And it was just a natural progression that I just felt better all the time with that food, and it felt right. So that made a shift. The hyperbaric oxygen therapy allowing me to read and research again, not to be stuck in my old paradigm. And then the water fast, you feel clean when you eat fruit, and the flavors is bursting.
I'm struck again by the self-experimentation that you've described, like reading and trying. One of the things you said earlier that I want to emphasize is that in the periods of you feeling better, you use that time to, ask the question, okay, what can I do to help myself? So just as a word of gentle encouragement to people yes, you might not feel you have the capacity all the time, but when you do, use that time wisely to try and make some gains. But with all of that experimentation that you've done, and you've talked about, some things worked, some things didn't work, you were kind of feeling around in the dark sometimes. What advice would you give someone who's struggling with a chronic condition, and they have a sense that they want to help themselves, but they're not entirely sure what to do, and there are lots of confusing messages, that they get online. One person says eat this diet, another person says eat that diet. What advice would you give them as a way to move forward?
So first of all, if you're going through a condition, you're not alone. There's other like us. It's frightening, it's putting us down, but we're not alone. And I find strength in knowing I'm not the only one going through that. So wherever we may be going through, there's someone else at some place going through a similar thing. So please know you're not alone. And more than that, there are doctors like Dr. Adigo and others that are doing the very best and dedicating their life, giving all their lifetime, all their family time, all the pleasure time off, and missing out on so many things in life for people like us to get better in one way or another. And they can't maybe find the answers and give us the solutions straight away, but they don't give up. They absolutely dedicate their life and give up on so many things to try and help us get better. So stay strong. There will be we will get better. Sometimes time will make us better. Sometimes a supplement or a diet or a practice or a counselor or something may make us better. So just hang in there. Try to think positive. Still love yourself. Forgive yourself. You haven't chosen it upon yourself. So that's one thing, a message for anyone who's going through struggles. And then it is very difficult with what to believe, what you read, and what will work and what will not work. Try to use some common sense where possible. I think in generally it's agreed eating clean. So we know sugar and refined foods is not clean. So just let's try to remove the refined processed foods away from us. And research, I can tell you all day long how plant-based, gluten-free did the world of good to me. But it's a journey. I earned it. To stick to something, we got to earn it. So just do some research, find good doctors, see that they have good reviews, that people mentioning them, see how they listen, if they sound good to you, that it's work for you, then you know the good. Keep educating yourself, things will happen, and I guess just start from the basics to remove things which are common and good. So refined stuff, alcohol, coffees, salts, sugars, oils, fats, things which are really mostly common practice. Don't go too extreme. If you don't know, so someone take iodine. Really do research and get someone to check, because iodine can cause actually a lot of issues if, as it happens, your levels are high. Same with iron. We have medicine and science for, I want to say for a reason, but it's a privilege to have these tools today, that they can look into us and help us. On days when you can and you're able, go for a walk. If you're wheelchair bound, maybe someone can take you to the fresh air, have a bit of window open, things like that. Breathe through your nose where possible. Sleep, all the things Dr. Adigo covers on. Find others to support you in similar circumstances. We have Zooms and online facilities today which really help connect us. Don't be too hard on yourself. I can keep on going.
No, that is awesome. And I love the emphasis on the mindset and on finding some support from real people. Whether that's a community online, whether that is a practitioner, as opposed to perhaps just reading something and doing it on that basis. Talk to people who have been through it and are able to give you their personal experience. I think that's really valuable advice. You are I'm just delighted that you're an inspiration about the power of just paying attention and changing various things in order to make a difference in your life. So, and a big impact on your health. So I'm delighted that you've shared your story with the listeners. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we wrap up?
I just want to thank you for the work you do and your dedication, and you're so helpful and so informed, and I love your approach. So I thank you for being on my podcast, and I'm grateful to being on yours and for the listeners. So just thank you again.
Thank you, Adan. And where can people find you if they're interested in learning more about you?
I have a podcast called Feel Good With Me, but really it stands for ME, which is chronic fatigue syndrome. So you can look that up, and I will also give you some links, but
we'll put those down. Wonderful.
Amazing.
Well, it's been a delight, a pleasure to speak with you, and I wish you the very best and look forward to connecting again at some point soon.